They ruled over one of the mightiest and most elegant courts in Europe. For over 600 years, their power was absolute. They commissioned great works of art, built stupendous castles, and commanded massive armies. Then it all came tumbling down. Forced into exile and stripped of their holdings, this proud family was banned from their own country. But they have endured, and today the newest generation of Habsburgs carry on the family tradition. Though no longer with an empire, they are still at home among the most powerful and privileged circles in the world. They are the members of one of Europe's oldest dynasties, the House of Habsburg.
How sweet a thing it is to wear a crown, so wrote William Shakespeare. Certainly there is much glamour and privilege associated with royalty, but there can sometimes be a dark side too. What happens, for instance, when the crown gets too heavy, when a kingdom is lost? In the case of the Habsburgs, they were once the most powerful royal family in Europe, until their dynasty came to an end during World War I. So where are they now, and what are they doing? Come with us as we meet up with some of the contemporary family members who give us a rare glimpse into what it's like growing up in exile while trying to live up to an illustrious family name.
Austria, a land of majestic mountains, fairy tale castles, and imperial splendor. At its heart, the capital city of Vienna. Its Gothic cathedrals, grand boulevards, and majestic castles adorn a city that brought the world the waltz and cafe society. A city that for over 600 years was home to the dazzling and brilliant court of the Habsburg family. Vienna's rich heritage of art, music, and architecture bears the indelible mark of the Habsburg dynasty. From this city along the Danube, they once ruled one of Europe's mightiest and longest-lasting empires. And of course, they required castles befitting the majesty of their domains. During the summer, the Habsburgs resided at the Schönbrunn Palace. This Baroque edifice was designed to be the Versailles of Vienna, and it is. The palace has over 1,400 rooms, magnificent gardens, and elegant walkways. All are grand expressions of the Habsburg rule. Throughout the long history of Vienna, the city has provided the stage for many of the players and events that have molded the fate of Europe. The Habsburgs first took over Vienna in 1278. In that year, Rudolf of Habsburg fought and won control of the city and its outlying regions. And so began the incredible rise of the Habsburgs. Over the next 600 years, they were determined to see their empire and their family grow. What better way to do that than through the institution of marriage? These politically shrewd unions allowed the Habsburgs to ally themselves with powerful empires, such as those of Burgundy, the Netherlands, and Spain. They saw their empire grow. Géza von Habsburg is a historian and descendant of the Habsburg dynasty.
There was a time, this is the middle of the 16th century, when it could be said of the Habsburgs that the sun did not set on their empire, meaning that they owned land in the South Seas. Europe, half of Europe was part of the Habsburg dominions at that time, and the New World, much of Southern America and the coast of Southern America was owned by the Habsburgs at that time.
But despite these advantageous marriages, the Habsburgs did face a crisis in the mid-18th century. Charles VI had failed to produce a male heir. So it was decided that his daughter Maria Theresa would succeed him in 1740. It would save the dynasty.
We owe our presence here on this earth to Maria Theresa. She had 16 children, of which 13 survived, and from her 4 sons descend the various branches of the Habsburg family.
It was during Maria Theresa's 40-year reign that the golden age of the Habsburgs peaked.
She brought up this brood of children who were then married off to the various princes and princesses of Europe. All of them were dynastic marriages with a view of spreading a network of Habsburg influence throughout Europe. She was a wonderfully warm-hearted, caring woman, but at the same time ruthless. As far as these marriages were concerned, no happiness was ever considered. Love marriages did not really exist in her mentality at all. The daughters were sold off to whoever was the most important prize, diplomatically seen, politically seen.
No Habsburg marriage is more celebrated in Viennese history than that of Emperor Franz Joseph to the beautiful Princess Elisabeth of Bavaria, affectionately known as Cece. Franz Joseph was originally intended to marry Cece's sister, but when he caught sight of the fetching 16-year-old Cece, he was smitten, and the two were married in 1854. Cece was quite an unusual woman for her era. She was passionate about such unladylike pursuits as wild riding, hunting, gymnastics, and poetry. And she was stunning, although beauty came with its challenges.
Her hair went down to the floor, took 2 hours a day to comb, and it was washed once every 3 weeks, and it took the whole day to wash.
But for all her beauty and love of life, Cece was ultimately a tragic figure. As a royal wife, she performed her duty, giving birth to 4 children, including an heir to the throne, Rudolf. But court life was too stifling for the free-spirited empress. She began to travel, spending most of her time away from Vienna and her husband. Her health suffered.
A woman like her was totally and utterly unheard of. Somebody to opt out of the system was inconceivable, and she did. Strangely enough, she reminds one very much of Princess Diana, or vice versa. Diana reminds one of Empress Elisabeth, because Elizabeth too had the same problems of health. She went into desperate diets in order to keep thin. Her waist was 20 inches in circumference.
Then, in 1889, Cece faced the greatest tragedy of her life. Her son and heir to the Habsburg throne, Rudolf, was found dead with his young mistress. It seemed an apparent murder-suicide, but to this day many believe that the prince was the victim of a political assassination. By that point, Cece was already a desperate shell of a woman. In 1898, her journey came to a violent end, when she was assassinated by an Italian anarchist who simply wanted to murder a member of royalty. When Franz Joseph, a man who had never stopped loving Cece, received the news of her death, he collapsed into tears and asked, "Am I to be spared nothing in this world?"
The saddest old man in Europe.
It seemed not.
The Emperor Franz Joseph of Austria.
The world was changing, and by the turn of the century, the empire was turning into a powder keg as nationalistic tensions were building throughout Europe. In 1914 came an event that would change the course of history and change forever the fortunes of the Habsburg dynasty.
Tragedy shadows the Habsburg house. Assassination is commonplace.
A Serbian terrorist assassinated the heir apparent to the throne of Austro-Hungary, Archduke Franz Ferdinand and his wife. It was the spark that ignited World War I. By the time it was over, the war had all but driven from power the royal families of the German, Russian, and Austro-Hungarian empires. Franz Joseph died halfway through the war in 1916. His successor, Charles I, ruled for barely 2 years before renouncing his power. By 1918, the once powerful Habsburg family had been forced into exile. Their reign was over. Yet they forged a new history. Princess Michaela von Habsburg is the granddaughter of Charles I.
They told them to get absolutely out of there. If not, they would have the same problems as the Russian Tsar and his children had. I mean, I think if they would have stayed much longer, they would have all been killed.
It was in Madeira, a little island off the coast of Portugal, that the last Habsburg to rule would spend his final days. Only 4 years later, Charles I died. His wife, Empress Cece, was left to carry on. Her primary task as matriarch of the Habsburg family was to raise their 8 children, and to prepare her oldest son, Otto, to lead the dynasty, even if they were no longer in power. Just 10 years old when his father died, Otto would bring a renewed sense of energy and dynamism to the Habsburg family. He learned to speak 7 languages and went on to get a doctorate in political science. He also continued the Habsburg tradition of marrying within royal circles. In 1951, he wed Princess Regina of Saxony.
The historic Cathedral of the Rope Makers in Nancy, France, is the setting for Europe's royal wedding of the year, as Princess Regina Saxe-Meiningen is joined at the altar by Archduke Otto, pretender to the throne of Austria-Hungary. The marriage unites 2 of the oldest families of the Holy Roman Empire. After the banishment and death of his father, Otto became next in line for succession to the throne. Princess Regina's family had its origin in the 10th century. The bride's train measures 22 feet of truly regal brocade, and her veil and diadem are priceless family heirlooms. The wedding is the climax of a romance begun when both were working at an Austrian displaced persons camp.
Royal families from across Europe came together for the wedding.
Crowd in holiday mood cheers the royal newlyweds, whose ancestors wrote many chapters in the pages of European history. Otto, an emperor without a throne, but with a wife of regal bearing.
In the Habsburg tradition, they had a large family, 7 children in all, 2 boys and 5 girls, including twins, Monica and Michaela. While it wasn't the same as being ruling monarchs, theirs was a happy life.
We had a big, big country home in Spain, right at the sea, which we all adored. And we had this big house near Munich in Germany. And that's where we grew, all of us grew up. And we had a great childhood because we were 7 of us. So we always had a companion to play with.
But the Habsburgs were determined that their children should not lose their aristocratic bearing.
A very loving environment, a very controlled environment. We had to play musical instruments, we had to read the Bible, we had to eat at exactly 12 o'clock, exactly 7 o'clock. And they educated us in 5 different languages. So every day we spoke a different language or had to listen to a different language. We had a lot of nannies, and we were not really allowed to play with the kids from the neighborhood, which was really tough.
Although living in exile, the close-knit Habsburg children found ways to transcend their situation through elaborate family plays and sports. But always the children were under the watchful eye of their grandmother, the former empress. She was a woman who commanded respect.
That was not a cookie-milk grandmother, absolutely not. We had to make an appointment to see her. And when we saw her, we could sit at her feet and talk to her, and she would talk to us. Of course, if you have to make an appointment to see somebody, it's not exactly like, Grandma, come here and we need you.
Most of the Habsburg grandchildren settled in Europe, often marrying other royalty, but not all. As a young girl, Princess Michaela experienced a strict upbringing. But as an adult, she took a path that led her to America and freedom.
Since I was a young girl, I always dreamed of America, of the freedom in America, of the bigness of America, of the lifestyle in America, of the ethnic differences in America.
When she was 16 years old, Michaela went against the grain of royal tradition and pursued that dream. Today, America is her permanent home. A single mother of 3, Michaela lives in Florida, somewhat less ostentatiously than her ancestors.
I'm seen as a black sheep because I just went away. I mean, I just wanted my independence. I wanted to work. I much rather live in my house in Florida and a penthouse in New York and have less servants and do my own washing and cleaning than to be surrounded by servants all the time, because you never have a moment of privacy.
Besides being a mother, Michaela runs her own business, the Princess Michaela line of fashion accessories. She also finds time to speak to high school students about her family history. But while Michaela's position as a princess opens a lot of doors, she knows her title also comes with obligations.
You have to represent your family well. You cannot just hang around and be yourself for most of the time, especially when you do something to represent your family. When I go out for the March of Dimes and I'm the Princess Michaela, I cannot be the mom that I'm in Florida. So it means a lot to me, and it means a lot for my kids, this heritage.
The rest of Michaela's family is also aware of the obligations their heritage places on them. Since the end of World War II, Michaela's father Otto has devoted himself to the cause of European unification. He recently retired from his seat in the European Parliament, yet he continues these efforts. At his side in politics are his sons Karl and Jörg. Together they are helping to keep the Habsburg influence alive in government. But not all the present-day Habsburgs are involved in politics. The Habsburg creative legacy is also very much alive and thriving in the modern world.
Our look at the Habsburgs continues in a moment here on Romance Classics. We now return to royal families of the world and the Habsburgs.
Vienna, a city of beauty and majesty. A city whose architectural splendor reflects the inspiration of the Habsburgs. For it was Franz Joseph who in the late 1800s gave the city a magnificent facelift, resulting in the creation of such impressive buildings as the Staatsoper, or Opera House. Known for its grand style, the Staatsoper was musical home to Gustav Mahler, Richard Strauss, and other musical geniuses. It was in 19th century Vienna that the waltz was born. And today, the people of Vienna still flock to the ballrooms where the tradition of waltz is revered. It should come as no surprise, then, that some of the present-day Habsburgs continue to be comfortable in ballrooms and high society gatherings. In the case of Archduke Géza von Habsburg, he also carries on the family tradition of involvement in the arts. Now living in the United States, Géza, a member of the Hungarian line of Habsburgs, surrounds himself with objects of beauty. For 18 years he worked at the international auction house Christie's before venturing out on his own. An acclaimed expert on Fabergé eggs and the author of numerous books, Géza is one of the world's most sought-after auctioneers.
And we'll start off at $500. $500, thank you. And $750. My love and passion for the arts must come down through the centuries, although there is no one else in the family that has that quite as strongly developed as I do. I must say that my choice of activity, be it auction house, be it working together with museums in organizing exhibitions, be it writing books, be it lecturing, I think that was in the blood.
$3,000. As a boy living in Hungary, Géza was surrounded by the wealth and splendor of his noble family's estate. But that changed, suddenly and dramatically shortly after his 4th birthday.
I was born in Hungary, in Budapest in 1940, and we all fled in 1944 when the Russians moved in liberating Hungary from the Nazi occupation. And we left everything behind. Every single object that was owned by the family, including the entire jewelry of the family, were left behind by order of my grandfather. And everything was instantly looted. So we fled with nothing.
As it turned out, Géza's mother didn't leave everything behind.
This was a piece that my mother grabbed off the desk of my father in November 1944. As we fled, she ran back into the house, grabbed this and took it with her as the only piece that we brought out of Hungary.
And Géza's grandmother was just as bold. She actually smuggled some of her jewelry out of the country by sewing it into the hem of her dress. Other pieces she buried, never knowing whether or not the family would ever retrieve them. As luck would have it, one of those treasures would be recovered. These diamond and pearl bracelets are proudly worn by Géza's wife, Countess Elisabeth. Life in exile was difficult for Géza's family, but there were light-hearted moments as well. After graduating from the University of Switzerland, he began working for Christie's auction house. There, his status as a Habsburg had its advantages.
Everybody who had works of art of the noble families to which I was related, it was obvious that Christie's had hired me for that specific purpose of opening doors.
Today, Géza still lives surrounded by the art he so loves, and by the family that brings him much joy. Particularly his daughter, Isabella Maria Louisa.
She is the most fun-loving, crazy little girl who is very disobedient, but full of character. I would say, yes, she's got the makings of a Habsburg. She's got a little Habsburg lip already.
Géza's family heritage is never far from his thoughts. Currently, he is trying to mount the largest exhibit of the Habsburg dynasty ever seen in the United States.
What I want to do is to bring the Habsburgs to life by bringing here things which are of immense sentimental value, are virtually relics in their own countries, like for instance the dress in which Empress Elisabeth was killed and which has the gash where the stiletto entered her heart. One of my dreams is to bring the motor car in which Franz Ferdinand and his wife Sophie were assassinated in Sarajevo, this motor car riddled with bullets, or the uniform that he wore that is soaked in blood still. Things like that which I think would bring the history really alive.
With the remaining dynasty members currently dispersed across the globe, the family maintains their ties in ways similar to many families.
What we have had and what binds us together, I suppose, are never-ceasing marriages and burials, I guess, where we all get together.
The most recent of these was the grand nuptials of Archduchess Katharina von Habsburg to Count Massimiliano Secco di Aragona. In attendance were many of Europe's royalty, just like old times. But things are changing.
Not so very long ago, maybe 30 or 40 years ago, I remember that we still had to address the head of our family in the third person and as Majesty. This has changed. We now can talk as normal human beings with each other. And so this has brought the family much closer together.
Although they have changed with the times, for most of this millennium, the Habsburg family has played a leading role in the spheres of politics, art, and culture. They also gave to the world some of history's most remarkable personalities. For these things, they will always be remembered, no matter what the future holds.
Of all the Habsburg women, Empress Elisabeth probably generates the most interest, even 100 years after her dramatic death. An object of endless fascination, fans of the legendary Empress have even devoted a website to her. For royal families of the world, I'm Fiona Hutchison.
Wardrobe provided by Lord & Taylor.